Have you ever wondered why, when people mention American pie, they immediately think of the United States? Why not hamburger, cheesecake, or even pumpkin pie? Why is it apple pie? And if you're thinking of that famous movie of the same name, hold on. Today's story isn't about a bunch of rebellious teenagers. It's about a seemingly ordinary pie that carries with it a whole story of culture, history, and yes, something deeply American. If you love weird food facts, this one's definitely going to surprise you. If there's a food that instantly reminds you of a particular country, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And don't forget, what dish do you think deserves to be Vietnam's cultural symbol? Pho, banh mi, or maybe pomelo sweet soup? Let me know in the comments too. Now, let's go back a few centuries, to when the first English settlers arrived in North America. They brought with them seeds, livestock, and of course, their apple pie recipe. The apple pie actually didn't originate in America. It's the result of various European cultural influences, apples from Central Asia, pastry crusts from France, cinnamon spices from the Middle East, and baking techniques from England. But it was only when it came to America that this pie truly settled down and began to grow into a symbol. At first, apples weren't common in America. Wild apples were tiny and incredibly sour. But then came a particularly legendary figure, Johnny Appleseed, a man who traveled across the country planting apple orchards, sparking a wave of apple growing across the land. Sounds like a fairy tale name, right? But Johnny Appleseed was real. His actual name was John Chapman, a missionary who believed that planting apple trees was a spiritual mission. And thanks to him, apples, and apple pie, truly took root in the American soul. Have you ever heard of Johnny Appleseed? Comment yes if you have, or no if this is your first time hearing about him. That way I'll know if you'd like me to dive deeper into his story in a future episode. Apple pie gradually became a staple in American family gatherings, Thanksgiving dinners, Christmas celebrations. A warm slice of pie, crisp and fragrant with cinnamon, served with cold vanilla ice cream, it wasn't just dessert anymore. It became a nostalgic piece of childhood for millions of Americans. Then, during World War II, the image of apple pie rose to an entirely new level. When reporters asked American soldiers why they were fighting, many answered, for mom and apple pie. Sounds kind of funny, right? But it was actually a heartfelt way for soldiers to express their patriotism. In the harsh realities of war, that simple pie became a symbol of home, of love, of the peace waiting for them back across the ocean. And from that moment, the phrase "as American as apple pie" was born. Sounds familiar? It's like saying, as Vietnamese as a bowl of beef pho in the morning. A simple cultural reference, yet one that instantly evokes an entire nation. I truly believe every country has its own version of apple pie. A food that's not just to be eaten, but to be remembered, to tell stories through, and to connect generations. By the way, if you have a dish that instantly brings back memories of your grandmother, your mom, or your hometown, please share it in the comments. These kinds of memories often carry a special power to comfort and reconnect us. And if you're someone who's into culture, history, or weird food facts from around the world, this channel is totally your vibe. And if you enjoyed this story so far, don't forget to hit that like button and save it, because the next part is going to get even more fascinating. So, from a humble little pie to a national symbol, the apple pie has taken quite a journey. But that's not the end of the story. The most surprising part is this pie once became a weapon of cultural resistance. In the 1960s, 1970s, when the United States was going through a period of great upheaval with the Vietnam War, anti-war movements, and a wave of cultural rebellion, apple pie began to appear in a very different light. In 1971, musician Don McLean released the song American Pie. The song was nearly 9 minutes long, exactly the length of this podcast, by the way, and it became one of the most iconic tracks of all time. But the strange thing is, no one really knows exactly what American Pie in the song means. It seems nostalgic, somewhat sorrowful, and full of longing for something that has been lost. The pie here isn't just a dessert anymore, but a symbol of the American dream, something beautiful, simple, and pure, that no longer exists the way it once did. Have you ever listened to the song American Pie? If yes, how did it make you feel? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I'm really curious to know. If you're into weird food facts, here's one: apple pie, often thought of as the ultimate American dessert, actually has roots all over the world, with ingredients and techniques borrowed from Central Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. What's fascinating is that apple pie didn't stop at being a traditional American cultural symbol. It's been reimagined across all kinds of modern contexts, from films, pop music, internet memes, to marketing. Fast food brands compete to sell their own mini apple pie versions, TV shows host bake-offs featuring it, and online communities even recreate it using AI, all in an effort to memorialize American culture. And it's that very flexibility, the ability to evolve while holding on to its core, that has allowed American pie to endure through the centuries. It isn't a rigid formula. Every household has its own recipe. Every region adds a twist. Some add walnuts. Some skip the cinnamon. But everyone still calls it American apple pie. So, what do you think? Should culture and tradition remain unchanged, or is it okay for them to evolve with the times? Share your take. Every opinion is valuable and could spark a really interesting conversation. Here's another one for fans of weird food facts. During World War II, soldiers said they were fighting for mom and apple pie. What started as comfort food turned into a symbol of patriotism. That's a pretty unexpected cultural twist for a dessert, isn't it? The story of the apple pie made me realize, a cultural symbol doesn't need to be grand or extravagant. It can be as simple as a familiar scent. A crisp, fragrant slice of pie. A phrase everyone just understands. Like how we say my mom's pho, iced tea on the sidewalk, or square sticky rice cakes at Tet. These aren't just dishes, they're memories, identities, and an intimate part of each nation. The American pie doesn't just represent the United States during its golden days. It shows up even in the darker moments, when people questioned, resisted, and then returned to their core values. And that's what makes it more than just food. It's one of those weird food facts that ends up telling the story of a whole country. Thank you for listening to this story all the way to the end. If you enjoy this type of podcast, rich in culture, gentle in tone, yet full of flavor, don't forget to follow the channel. There are so many more fascinating stories waiting for you. And remember, if today you can sit and listen to a podcast about apple pie, maybe tomorrow, you'll be telling your own story, through a dish, a song, or a scent. Wishing you a day as warm and tender as a freshly baked pie crust. See you in the next episode.